Thank you for joining us. I'm Paul Wilson.
And I'm Chris Emke.
And this is Diesel Performance Podcast. Guys, we got an awesome show together today. We're going to be hearing from the winner of 2024 Ultimate Callout Challenge. Before we bring him on, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsors. I want to give a big shout out to Calibrated Power, home of DuramaxTuner.com. Chris, that's where we work. That's where we love.
If any of our listeners are going to be at UCC this upcoming weekend, please come to the booth. We'll be there.
Chris and I will be there. We'll be there Saturday at 2 p.m. We're going to be doing a live transmission build. We have our expert transmission builder coming to the show. Specifically to put together a transmission in front of everybody. So you'll get to see everything going on. And Chris
we're going to do the commentary.
We're going to do commentary. We're going to pester him. We're going to ask him questions. We're going to take his 45-minute job and stretch it out for about an hour and a half.
No, it's going to be fun. And then also at UCC, another one of our longtime sponsors, Exergy Performance.
Oh, I love Exergy stuff.
So any of you guys out there looking for questions to be answered around common rail injectors, pumps, fuel lines, any of the sort, they'll have a booth. Go check them out.
Also at UCC is going to be our other two sponsors, WC Fab. The Whirly crew comes out in full force. They have one of the largest booths at the entire show.
I'll tell you what, we were with Jason last weekend at the Thoroughbred Showdown event, right? Their Dyno Day. And Jason really does have a really slick booth. All the different powder coating that they have on display for all the different piping and Y-bridge kits and all the things that they have come to market with. It's really something that you need to go check out for yourself. The attention to detail over there with those guys are second to nothing.
Yeah, I think this year we should just send them home with our turbo display stands and let them powder coat all the covers, and then we'll go get them later.
Yeah, I think we should definitely give them our turbo display stands to light on fire. I think it's a revamp. There's a revamp coming.
We love our turbo display stands. Come by the booth, check them out. You'll see what we're talking about. They're just not fun to move.
I got a hernia from last weekend, so.
God, you used to be tough, bro.
I used to be.
Used to be as tough as the parts you get from XDP.
You know.
Extreme Diesel Performance.
That was good.
Extreme Diesel Performance, XDP.com, your one-stop shop for diesel performance. They've been on board with us for a long time. Chris, you and I have worked with XDP for a long time. We've both gone out to the show they used to have out there on the East Coast. We know the guys out there. We love the parts out there, and they've built their brand to be better and better over time. So if you're looking for anything for your truck, take a look at XDP. You can find, I believe, Exergy, WC Fab, and Duramax Tuner products all on XDP.com. Yep. Let's get back to the show. All right, guys, and we're back with the 2024 winner of Ultimate Callout Challenge, Kenny Bruner. How the hell are you?
I'm doing good. Just getting back from the entire trip and, just trying to get back to real life, back to work, back to hanging out with the family. Parked the truck when we got home and just left it there.
Now, you had left, because you're from California, so you had driven out a week prior, correct?
Yep.
And then it'd take you another week to get back?
Yeah, we took it's like 3 full days with maybe a little bit of into the fourth. We had like 40 hours, 12 to 15-hour days of driving. So, yeah.
So
damn, that's a haul.
Well, you had a lot of time to just kind of self-reflect, right? What was the feeling while you're driving out there, right? I saw the rig, I saw the setup. You got a Cummins towing a Cummins, you got your trailer, you got the works, right? What were some of the thoughts and feelings as you were driving out to Indianapolis prior to the event?
Did I tighten that bolt? Did I set that lash right? Did I, of course, right? It's everything you lay in bed thinking about, right? It's all the same stuff, just over and over.
Okay.
And just kind of like trying to set the tune with my guy Jordan that drove out with me. I had one of the person on my team, took the time off too, and just kind of like, hey, whatever happens, this was, a success already. Getting out here and being invited and getting to compete in this event. So.
Okay.
Now
I'm going to fast forward just a little bit because there's a bunch about the event that I want to talk about, but how much different was the vibe in the truck when you're driving home those 40 hours?
It was surreal, right? Like I kept saying, what the fuck just happened? You know what I mean? Like,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
It's always funny to me too, because you were so humble about going into it. Chris is always trying to bait people into calling out
I
whoever
think that's
they
more
think their
you, but
competitors
for
are.
sure, we collectively,
But I do remember you saying, well, I'm just going to go there and I'm going to have fun. I'm going to do my best, and I'm just happy to go and be a part of it. Well, now you won it. How, like, after day one, were you starting to feel like this is possible? Like, at what point during the event were you like, I think I'm in the running for first place? So,
we already knew drag racing would be a strong event for us, right? when we, oh my gosh. So the first day we, ran our first pass. It was like a 5:49, which was very respectable for us. It was like our first nitrous. We put a little bit of nitrous to it, and it was our first run with all the new changes. And I was super pumped, and we were in first place from a time perspective. But then I realized that we made the pass, and we didn't weigh the truck right. You got to go off the track and weigh it right away, which is a new rule. And I've just never had to do that. So I just bypassed those scales and went to the pit to cool the truck down and realized it didn't count.
Wow.
Yeah, everyone was kind of upset or pissed. And, I was just like, I fucked up, guys. I don't, it was something it wasn't in my muscle memory to pull off right away after the drag pass. And, my first instinct is, get the thing back to cool down. There's no, oil coolers. There's no water in this thing. Like, let's cool it off and check everything.
Makes sense.
So, yep, the first pass did not count. And even though we were in first, we weren't in first at all. We were in last. So basically we're like, okay, do we try to just not change a thing and just go run it again? Or do we say, yeah, that was great. I think it could take more.
And it's UCC, right?
Yeah, right. So we're like, okay, let's bump it up one tune, and we'll add a little more nitrous. And we just cranked out a 529, and it was smooth. We were a couple tenths in front of everyone leading the pack at that point.
And you went straight to the scale.
Yep, and I went straight to that damn scale. Yeah. I had my brother who's driving the UTV that tows us back. I said, "You stopped me dead in my tracks after that thing. Do not let me pass that scale." Because it's just a different, you're in a different mode, right? You're just like you're blinded. I don't know. But he met me there, and we just pulled off and scaled it, and we walked it up and turned it to the submission box with the signature on it and everything, and. But yeah, so we were doing fantastic, and then my one thing the whole weekend was don't get greedy, right? We were in first, and we're like, well, we could set the gap further because we didn't really hit the truck that hard. You know what I mean? Like we had like 51 jets in there, or like 05 ones in there, which is not big by any means. And we're like, dude, we've just scratched the surface of how much nitrous and fuel we're going to put into this. So we went for another pass, and we're like, well, let's just make the gap bigger, because we kind of knew that dyno day wasn't going to be our day. My personal best for dyno day was 1750, which was the last UCC. So I'm like,
almost half.
I'm not expecting, I'm like, if we're going to, try. The problem was I started to feel in first, and I was like, well, I started changing my game plan. Like the conservatism started falling out of me, right? I'm like, let's just turn it up a little more. Let's set the gap further. And so anyways, we bumped it up another tune, and we added, some duration and a little bit more nitrous. And for whatever reason, the trans was not shifting, but it wasn't the transmission, it was the controller. And it was something to have to do with like the anti-hunt. Like it was sensing, an increase in speed when it would like spin the tires, but then it would catch traction and it would reduce. So we were getting this catch between, first and second gear. So we ended up getting a little help to dial that in, so it wouldn't, do that. And so we blew the, we hit the rev limiter on that next pass out when we tried to crank it up even more. And I ended up smacking it into gear with my hand instead of using the pneumatic air shifter. And we clocked off a 531. And, some stuff was happening. And we're like, you know what? Stop pushing it. We're like,
quit playing.
It didn't happen. Yeah, quit playing. Call it a win and put the truck away and get ready for the dyno.
I mean, that's a win, though, right? Multiple passes, truck stayed in one piece. Yep. I don't know what could be a better outcome day one, to be honest with you.
How close was second place? You said your pass was a 520 what?
529, and the next was a 550 something.
Yeah.
So
pretty
we
impressive.
had like 2 tenths on the whole class,
Yeah.
or everyone.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that feels good going in after day one, doesn't it? I mean, I got to imagine like, you played with it, you tested it, you called yourself back. Okay, settle down. We got it. I mean, is that like you're going into the dyno? You said 1,700 is the most you had seen. What were your expectations going in?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this before. I was like, man, 2,200. 2,200 to 2,400. I would be, that's what I was going for. I was like, man, honestly, a 2K number. I was like, that's kind of a stepping stone for me, which isn't big for the rest of the world, but like, that's a couple hundred horse in our personal best. And it's the same turbo setup.
That's a lot of power for a lot of diesel enthusiasts. It's just a minute few that can say that they own a 2,000 horsepower vehicle. So from the general consensus, Kenny, that's impressive nonetheless.
I know. It's 2,000 horsepower. I mean, it's
not that
lot.
much, but it's honest work. Yeah. So what did you end up? What did the truck end up making on the dyno?
Yeah, so I mean, leading up to it, let's just say, I'll give you a little pull back a little bit. We ended up doing some dyno tuning, like 2 days before the event, and we were making around, it was like 16 or 1,700 to the tire, fuel only, which was damn near more horsepower than I've ever made, but on fuel only. So the new engine from Freedom Racing Engines was just working good, and we had bigger injectors from Dynamite, still had the same 12 millimeter pumps, so everything, like from a fuel only perspective, we were up like 200 to 300 horsepower just from the injector change and the new engine. Our last setup we did 1450 on fuel only with the same turbos, pretty much same everything except for we swapped to bigger injectors and new engine. So we knew we could make 1,700 on fuel only, and the idea was we'd throw 500 horse worth of nitrous in it. And our tuner Ryan Milliken from Hardway, his strategy was kind of the opposite of mine. His was like, I want you to take every single jet out of every stage, and I want you to put it all in at once. And that that scared the shit out of me, right? I was like, I do not want to explode this engine. So we kind of met in the middle. We put mega jets in there. If you're not familiar with those, they're just huge jets. We had 3 stages of those, and then another 4th stage, which was like a 136 in it. And we did stage them in, they didn't all fire at once. We did stage them in. And then it just, okay. And so, we had it controlled by the maximizer, which was, I wanted to get away from the button, the kill button, I wanted it to be programmed in. And the first 2 runs, the first one, it screams. Like I could hear the power, like nothing I'd ever heard before, but the dyno said 1,500.
Oh, wow.
And we were like looking at each other, and, Cody, who runs the dyno, kind of was like, nope, that's not it. Something's going on. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe it wasn't, in overdrive or whatever. And before the rollers even slowed down, I said, I'm going for a second one. And he's like, well, wait. You're just going to go for another run right back to back? And I said, hold on. And I started bringing it through the gears, and he was kind of on the ride with me. And he was like, what are we doing? And I'm like, let's just fucking, load it. And we went for the second one, and I was damn sure it made it, into overdrive. And it either downshifted or wouldn't lock up back to like the controller of trans, or I don't know what it was, but it made another like 1,500 horsepower pass, and that was like, okay, now I'll turn the damn thing off. And we were kind of panicking, like, what the hell's happening? At first we're like, we're blowing through the trans, and Ryan Milliken, very experienced tuner, was sitting there. He's like, I don't fucking buy it. Like what, how do we make this thing go into overdrive and lock up? And we happen to have, I had brought an old wiring harness that I made to, like, you know, where you just ground out the 2 solenoids to make overdrive and lockup, you know, back in the day before we had any kind of transmission controller that did it automatically. We just had a manual kind of setup, and I told my, you know, one of my guys to run and get it, and they got it. And of course, when they handed it to me, we plugged it in, and all the switches weren't like connected, and the wires were unplugged and everything, and the switches wouldn't operate. So we had time running out, you know. I literally just slammed the helmet on my head, and I told Cody we're going for it. And I was I was connecting the wires together as switches, right? I was holding them in my hands, and I don't know if you'll see a video. I'm sure someone's got it somewhere.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm literally like, I have wires in my hand and holding them together to actuate, you know, overdrive and lockup. And I just like clicked them both together, and it's like, it is in overdrive and lockup no matter what now. And I'm holding them, and I don't have any other hands available. And I just mashed the throttle, and it smacked, you know, an incredible number. It made like 2,832 horsepower or something like that. And I was just like, I couldn't let go of the damn wires. I was so excited. I was like, punching them in my hands. and I was in disbelief, right? I was like, is this real life, you know? And yeah, and you know, with not much time to spare, and we just walked away, and everyone, I almost staged, you know, or a crowd jumped into my team, you know. I was like, wow, I felt like I was walking on water, you know.
That is fucking awesome.
That's pretty cool.
That is, held the wires together during the run.
Yep.
Isn't it a 30-minute window from when you roll on to when you're done? What's the time window? 20.
It's 20.
All of that in 20 minutes.
All of that.
That's crazy.
How, like, do you go back and look at data logs? Were you data logging anything on the truck? Like, how hot did the truck get between those first 2 runs back-to-back heat like that? Like, that had to be smoking.
You know, and it's funny, it's like, I'm usually like, that's the first thing I want to do. But I was like, I don't even want to look at it. I don't care. That number was amazing, and let's get ready for the next one.
2,800. Where did that put you in rank for the dyno? Were you the second highest, third highest? Where'd you fall?
So of course, you know, we were the first person to drag race. We drew number 1 on the dyno, which I was like,
oh,
shit, you know,
wow.
Like we were supposed to dyno at like, I think it was 10, and we had a driver's meeting at 9, and I pulled number 1, and I looked around, and everyone, you know, one guy was like, I don't know what you're looking at me for. I'm not trading, you know. You know, nobody wanted that damn number 1 spot that was, you know, started in an hour. And then Cody Pullman looks at me and he goes, "You've got 30 minutes." And I was like, "No, it says 10. He goes, "I'm telling you 30 minutes. So we started the dyno runs like a half hour early because, you know, the whole event was kind of a little bit behind. And we ran up there and made do. And it didn't give us much time to think, which is usually a problem for me because I typically overthink and keep wanting to change the strategy. But we were stuck with the jets I put in. I didn't have time to ask anyone for input and just kind of went with the gut feel, and it turned out all right.
Yeah, I would say that worked out in your favor.
What was highest horsepower of the day?
Chris Patterson hit like 3,000 on the nose. So that put us in second place. And yeah, once we hit 2,800, it was like, holy shit, we are in this. You know, we're podium. You know what I mean?
That's the moment. That's the moment where you're like, I'm on the podium. That was the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
like,
so fucking cool.
Yeah, it was like we are getting 1 through 3. You know, first through third in my mind. That's when I felt like this is doable.
So 3 or 4, 4 passes right at the track. You had three stabs on the dyno in a 20-minute period, and just so I'm clear, nothing broke on the truck at this point.
No.
You've also at this point operated the truck for an operating time of 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
A week of driving.
Yeah.
A week of driving. A year of building. 8 minutes of operation. Love it.
And it stayed together.
And
that's the impressive part.
That's a high mark,
yeah,
right? That's.
So I will, just for full transparency, like on that last run when we had that kind of like shift oddity, you know, we had gotten a spare transmission from my buddy Adam, and because I called him. I was like, hey dude, can you just get a spare transmission together so we could bring it to UCC? And he's like, yeah. And this was like a week before, so props to him he's like, yep, I'll drive out there with it and we'll have a spare. And when after the drag races, I just kind of told the team, I was like, this transmission is fine, but with that little oddity and shifting, like, let's just throw the spare in, because I do not think we're going to grenade a spare transmission on the dyno. I mean, I know it has happened before with a few individuals within that 3K mark, but I was like, we're not there. We're not going to make that number, so we're not going to have that issue. And so we threw the brand new trans in there, and just in case. And yeah, it all worked out, and we were good for sled pulling. We had no failures at that moment.
Nothing like a 2,800 horsepower dyno pass to break in your
and
transmission.
the number one drag pass with no issues. Like, I'm just saying, like, there's a consistency thing here. Like, planets are aligning, right? Like, that's what's in the back of my mind. The cool thing for you too, Kenny, is you were able to pull off the dyno run, and you were able to beat the rain, right? Saturday. I mean, I was there Saturday. The weather was shit. So, you were able to make do with that, which I think is pretty badass. So, pulling an early number. I
know. And that was like pulling the first card was, like a negative for me at first, and then the rain started turning to shit, and we had a driver's meeting, and one of the other competitors joked and was like, well, I think Kenny should have to redo it in the rain like the rest of us. And I was like, bullshit, no one wanted my number one spot.
Exactly. Yup.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. Now, I mean, then we have day 3. I know, we spoke a little bit about, sled pulling and, the drag racing scene in your area. So what did day 3 look like for you? What was the preparation going into that, and how did that turn out?
Yeah, day 3, we loaded up all the weights that we typically have for the truck, but the truck usually is 600 pounds under, or we lost 600 pounds in drag race configuration. So we assumed we needed 600 pounds in additional in sled pull weight. So we started asking some of the other competitors. Maury Logue had a bunch of lead plates that we ended up throwing in the, thanks Maury, shout out for letting us borrow some of those plates, and we put them in the front of our weight box. And we usually have 1,000 pounds in the front weight box and 1,000 pounds in the cab, just because we ran out of room in the front weight box. But those lead weights, they just kind of fit in there. They're small, but they're heavy. And we ended up getting to the scale, and we were like 600 pounds too heavy. So kind of a head scratcher. We didn't know why. But we ended up pulling out the cab weights, or 6 of them, 6 plates. And but besides that, we were kind of just ready to go. We slapped the sled pulling hitch on. Our good buddy Evan Rusk, who's a seasoned sled puller, and Chase Fleece came over, and they're like, they kind of helped us out. They were like, helping us set the coils on the front coilovers, and we've done a fair bit of pulling, but not like what these guys do, right? This is their bread and butter, and they were like, this is what you want the chassis to do. This is what you want to set the rebound to this and the compression to that, so it acts like this. And we're just learning at this point, and it fucking paid off. The thing was smooth, and it just hooked and booked down that track.
What did you end up placing at the sled pull?
We took first in sled pull too.
Oh my God!
We pulled 317 feet. Like,
holy shit!
Full pull, baby.
Yep.
Ooh,
yeah, we went right past that full pull line, right? and just kept going. So the funny part is I was talking to Chase and Evan, and they're like, we do not want all the horsepower on this pass. And, they were talking with Ryan, our tuner, and we're all kind of looked at each other, and we're like, maybe let's go look for like 1,500 horsepower. So we kind of, chose a lower tune. We pulled the fuel back, and we defueled it to try to, reduce the power so we wouldn't just blow the tires off. And, when it came to pulling time, when I, gave it everything, it sure as shit, felt like a lot more than 1,500 horsepower.
Oh, with this,
it was screaming. Like it was pissed, and it was running, and we cooked down the track, and we were, if you were to see how much dirt we were throwing behind us, it was pretty impressive. And then, I saw Levon Miller kind of knew about us targeting 1,500 horsepower because he had stopped by the pit earlier, and he goes, "That sure as shit didn't seem like 1,500 horsepower. That seemed more like 1,800." So, and it felt like it. So I have no idea what that pass made, but it was screaming.
That's awesome.
And also, Chase told Ryan to up that rev limiter to like 6,500. And I have no idea how many RPMs it hit, but I was treating it like a 2-stroke dirt bike. I just smacked it, when I heard the power, and I smacked it, or I locked it up, and then I smacked third, and I just said, I'm not shifting any more past that, and let it sink.
Now, I have a question, and it might be, it's what I read online, but I saw a post late Sunday after the winter announcement and things like that took place. Is there a correlation with the power plant, the engine that you have from Freedom Racing, and that being one of Turbo Tom's original motors, or is there any truth to any of that I read?
That is the exact engine pulled from his chassis after his wreck. So Turbo Tom, like this, when you say the stars are aligning, that's what I was thinking of. Like Turbo Tom, in my mind, won that event with us. You know what I mean? Like his dad was out there in the pit with us and knew about the engine, and it was a real powerful moment having him show up and being a part of the pit, and his spirit was there in my mind. It was just like drawing first on the dyno, and drawing first again on sled pull day, or having all the like the sun out and no rain, and
right.
There was just a lot of luck in the weekend, or quote unquote luck, right? It was just a presence. It seemed like.
I mean, it's kind of hard to dispute that. I would agree, and the fact that I don't want to take anything away from you in this, but you had a lot of effort and a lot of preparation, but you had a really easy weekend. Like, you didn't have to fix much. You didn't break anything, really. I mean, a trans, right?
What a dick. Oh,
no,
my God.
Like, it's so perfect. Like, there's a lot of other guys that have won that have had to reinvent the wheel and do a lot of things.
Yeah,
like,
you're not lying.
the $1 million question here is with such a great turnout in 2024, have this be a contest next year, you got to come back, I would assume, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's this is whole back to like getting greedy, like I've got, Ryan, and I got, a couple people whispering Motec in my ear, you know what I mean? Like,
that would be something Ryan would be screaming in your ear. Yes.
I'm like, why mess with a good thing? And
right.
I mean, like we had, even looked up the points, and because you could say, oh, this person didn't compete or that person didn't compete and that's why you got first or whatever. But if you look at the points, we've made the most points in a UCC event than any other competitor has ever made.
Kenny Bruner better than Levon Miller. You heard it here first, out of his own mouth. Said Levon ain't shit. We all know who you're talking about. We all know who you're talking to. Just say it.
Levon, I'm calling you out, man.
Speculating how much power you have going down the track, man. Fuck him. But no, all joking aside, man, I mean, what a banner weekend. You kicked ass. You arguably traveled further than anybody at that event. Yeah. And, you could have had a better outcome for tying up, 2.5 weeks of your life, right? To be able to get out there and do it on top of all the back end preparation of the truck and everything else prior in your 9 to 5. So, that's just insane. I don't think I couldn't have expected a better outcome.
Yeah, I couldn't have either. I mean, like, it was ridiculous. Like every night, we'd be out there starting 5 p.m. and we'd shut it down at 10 to 11. And my main core group of guys were there also. And like, I just couldn't believe that they would, sacrifice their time with their families and girlfriends and wives and kids, and like I was doing. Like, it was nuts for me to be doing it for my own race truck, but to have them doing it too, and we were just all in together. It was just unbelievable, the amount of commitment that everyone had, and like everyone coming together and making it happen. So it just made it that much better.
Well, Kenny, you fucking earned it. Absolutely. Congratulations, I think are the right words here. You've been a great guest on the show. That's what matters most to me. But you also did pretty well at UCC, and I think everybody else will care more about that.
Yeah, no, definitely.
All right, guys. For today, we again want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Kenny, if people want to follow along with you and with the truck, where's the best place they can go and follow you?
Instagram, Capital Diesel Performance, capital with an A, and you will see the entire build, top to bottom.
I love it. Cool. Absolutely. Well, guys, for today, this has been Paul Wilson.
And Chris Emke.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us today, guys. This has been Paul Wilson.
And Chris Emke.
Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon.
I kept saying, what the fuck just happened? You know what I mean? Like,
that's awesome.